Hi there, I'm Jennifer with Sublimely Aligned, and today's alignment teaser is the forward bend. And I really love the forward bend because most people are very familiar with it, either through another movement practice or people recognize that they're forward bending throughout the day in the context of their day in some fashion. And that is really what Sublimely Aligned is about. It's about giving you the tools and the inspiration to add more and varied movement into the context of your current day for better health. The forward bend is also great because you don't need any props for this one, and it is fairly conspicuous. I will let you be the judge of that, but we will debrief how you can actually weave this into the course of the day after we forward bend. But before we get started, you may have done a forward bend before, and it may or may not look like the one we're going to do today. Each different instruction or type of forward bend is going to beget a different adaptation for the body or a different outcome. And so it's nice to know what your goals are with a movement sometimes. And for today, our goal is to restore optimal length in the hamstrings. And that will then beget optimal strength and mobility for the hamstrings. And this is something that's highly relevant for us in our sort of current culture where we do sit a lot more than the body is designed to sit. So without getting any more information, you can get started with me right now. But you do want to listen to your body if you don't have a lot of background in the alignment points. And certainly being familiar with the alignment points for stance can be really useful. But I will walk through those quickly with you. So we're going to start by having our feet pelvic width apart. This is your pelvis. And you're going to have your feet pelvic width apart. And you're going to have the outside edges straight or parallel to one another. Your weight will be in your heels. So the both foot is on the ground, but the weight of the pelvis is mostly in the heels. And you're going to try and relax the kneecaps. As you forward bend, you might find that they contract again, but you're going to sort of revisit that. So we're going to just be moving from the hip joint, and this is essentially the front of the pelvis. So you can almost picture two perforated lines at the front of the pelvis, and that's where we'll be moving from. Nothing else is going to be moving. So I'm going to turn sideways now and give you a little more view of my spine, although I realize this top probably isn't the best because it's not going to give you the best view. So we're going to start with our stance, in our stance I should say, and remembering that we're not moving the spine or anything below the hip joint, we're just moving the hip joint. We're going to start to fold forward in space. As our trunk or the weight of our trunk comes forward, you may find that, sorry, I realize I'm kind of lopsided to the camera. You may find that the pelvis needs to move back in space to counterbalance for that weight, and that's okay. And once you can no longer move from the hip joint, you're going to stop. So what I mean is that oftentimes when we forward bend, the goal is maybe to get to the floor or touch the toes or go as far as you can. And we end up doing a lot of the movement from our spine. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to have that movement, or we want to have that movement available. But it looks more like this. It's sort of like flexion. Probably didn't hear that. Flexion through the spine. Today, the goal is just to keep the spine still, and you're just folding from the front of the hips. Then when you're there, you can hang out there for a little bit if it's okay. You're loading the hamstrings, and it's a really appropriate load because it's your body weight. And you may or may not notice the load to the hamstrings and maybe even the lower leg, the calf muscles. And then I love the image of drawing your heels back in space to come up to vertical. So you're trying to contract your hamstrings essentially to return yourself to vertical or into your stance. That was Brina from the Beach Alignment Center, her cue. So again, we're just going to fold forward. As you fold forward, you might feel that the sit bones are widening. So when you flex the hips, the sit bones widen. That's a nice image too. And then you're going to drag the heels back in space to return to vertical. So I often bend from the spine with something like this when I'm not paying attention, or even when I am paying attention. So if you're seeing movement through my spine, that could be it. You want to watch if you know about neutral rib cage, you want to watch that you aren't rib thrusting. And then drag those heels back to return to vertical. So this is something, as you can see, you can probably integrate into any sort of activity that requires you to bend over. Of course, some of those, I can only go so far, so I can only do it for certain things. But if you're working with students, so you're a teacher, there's probably many opportunities for you to do this forward bend, and it would feel quite nice actually to integrate these into your day, into your standing or sitting or whatever it is that you're doing during the day. If you're in an office place, you can do this with things off your desk, to pick up things, to go to the water fountain, for example. And certainly when you're a mom, this is something that's easy to integrate in with your children, of course, helping them out with their coats, putting away the toys. The opportunities are endless here. And really, I want to say you can't do it too much. Of course, it depends on your body and how it feels. So I would always recommend that you start slowly and make sure that you're not doing it with different muscles, or you're not holding tension in places that you shouldn't be holding tension. But ultimately, if it feels okay, it's something that you can weave through the context of your day as often as you need to bend over. And then you can start to restore the appropriate length and therefore mobility and strength to those hamstrings. So give it a try. I'd love to hear how it goes. Enjoy.